Housing advocates and tenants are now calling for a halt on evictions, Supriya, and the Landlord-Tenant Board hearings themselves amid an outbreak of COVID-19. One woman who is a member of the York Southwestern Tenants Union says, I had 3 different phone calls last week from people reaching out about having been recently evicted. They've shown up at their house. The doors have been locked or the locks have been changed. And there's a call. The group has launched a petition backing demands. 400 signatures so far. They say basically it's just safer for everyone in the city and the province to have a place to live. They've done this in New York City. They have already announced the housing courts there won't be issuing any eviction orders for 1 week starting today. And joining us on the line to talk about this, we have a landlord and tenants' right lawyer. We've talked to her before. Karima Saad joins us on the line. Karima, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a whole new world since we last spoke, Karima. What does the Residential Tenancies Act say about this?
So there are no specific measures in place for kind of the type of crisis that we're seeing right now. To the extent that the Act says anything, whenever there's an eviction, the board must consider all of the circumstances, whether it would be unfair to grant the eviction. And so I think that this type of pandemic certainly would be a circumstance that warrants a bit of closer attention.
Yeah, you know, you leave your house and you have a dispute with your landlord and you're forced to find shelter elsewhere, and hopefully it's not an actual shelter, but all it does is just increase the number of people gathered together.
That's exactly it. And our shelter system at the best of times is not really equipped to handle the volume that we have, at least not in the GTA. And so you throw in a highly contagious virus into the mix, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Karima, Mike already mentioned that in different jurisdictions, such as New York City, you've had at least some sort of political leadership on this, urging, landlords to sort of do the right thing here. I know Premier in Quebec, François Legault, has made similar pleas to landlord associations. Is it a bit of a disappointment, or is there a lag, I guess, in terms of the political response to this? Because it just seems nobody's going to do this out of the goodness out of their own hearts.
I think that there does need to be an organized movement. So I don't know that even in New York, this wasn't a top-down decision. It was sort of grassroots level up, and they influenced the electoral powers to act. So, I'm not losing hope for Ontario, and the situation really is developing day by day.
Karima, I mean, a tenant can they petition for postponement anyway?
So right now, the latest that I've heard is the Landlord-Tenant Board is not actually doing in-person hearings at this point in time. So anyone who has an upcoming eviction hearing should be seeking guidance from the board. Is it being postponed? Are we doing it by phone, in writing? What's happening? Anyone who has current sheriff proceedings ongoing, even the courts have announced that they are suspending non-essential services. Whether sheriff would be considered essential has yet to be clarified or announced. It's hard to say, and the landscape is very rapidly changing.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that process serving in general for everything is going to be up in the air for the next little while.
As it should be. These are sort of, it's an unprecedented situation, at least in the time that I've practiced. But I do think that this kind of precautionary approach, considering what we are seeing elsewhere with the spread where it hasn't been contained, business as usual just isn't going to cut it right now.
Last question for you, Karima. If I'm a landlord, am I just supposed to suck it up?
I think that a lot of the advocacy groups have seen a connection not just between public health and preventing evictions, but if we are going to freeze evictions, there also needs to be a freeze on mortgage payments. Banks, lenders need to come to the table as well. It can't just be a relief for tenants. We must also figure out a way to sustain landlords, particularly those who may not have large portfolios, are relying on.
They have mortgages themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened in Italy. So it's not impossible. It's not unfathomable. We just need to really think outside the box. And now is the time for decisive leadership.
Karima, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Karima Saad is a landlord and tenants' rights lawyer. I didn't realize Italy was doing that, but it makes perfect sense to me. The most important thing we all need right now is a place.
Yeah, Italy has deferred all mortgage payments. I've seen the CMHC and, Rubina sort of alluded to this a little bit earlier, that there will be some sort of relief for mortgage payments. Everybody needs relief at this time, obviously. And to your point, for landlords who don't have, they're not joint management companies, it's just a retired couple, let's say, who's renting out a unit, this can obviously